Last month, for the third year in a row, the Muslim alumni of Cornell University joined us here at Temple Emmanuel for Shabbat. After services, about 150 young Muslims and dozens of our congregants gathered for dinner downstairs to celebrate the holy month of Ramadan. Before the meal, the Arabic call to prayer rang out across Wise Hall, and the Muslim participants gathered in the east corner, facing Mecca, and using prayer mats, they performed their evening prayers. You could hear our congregants asking wonderful questions. Why are the women and men standing separately during prayer? Why do Muslims end their fast by eating a date? After dinner, Rabbi Davidson and I brought our guests up to the sanctuary, where we opened up a Torah scroll. And our Muslim friends had so many questions. How old is this scroll? Why do you use that pointer? Perhaps because of the obvious differences between Muslims and Jews, people felt free to ask questions. And this experience brought back a memory for me from the beginning of my time in rabbinical school, where in contrast to the free-flowing questions, I sat silently at the Shabbat dinner table in the home of an Orthodox friend. Their rituals were totally unfamiliar to me, and I wondered, why are people washing their hands in a bowl next to the table? Why didn't the host put the flowers I brought in water? But I didn't ask any of these questions because I felt self-conscious, embarrassed that I didn't know these Jewish customs. Sometimes interfaith dialogue is easier than intrafaith dialogue. Perhaps because exploring differences in Jewish practice becomes loaded with questions of authenticity and authority. The tension between Jews about how different groups practice Judaism becomes very intense in Israel, and you can see it on full display at the Western Wall. For over 25 years, a group called Women of the Wall have hosted prayer services in the women's section of the wall to welcome the new Hebrew month. Their mission has been to attain social and legal recognition of the right for women to wear prayer shawls, pray, and read from the Torah at the Western Wall. But the Western Wall is currently governed by Orthodox religious law, which prohibits women from leading services except in Robinson's Arch, a very small area that's not part of the main plaza of the Western Wall. When the Women of the Wall host their services each month, they are met by Jewish extremists who at times spit, throw chairs, and harass them for conducting a worship service. But last year, Women of the Wall and their allies won a complicated legal victory, and Prime Minister Netanyahu promised to create space in the main plaza where men and women would be able to pray together and where women would be permitted to conduct services. But last week, Prime Minister Netanyahu reneged on this promise because of pressure from his ultra-Orthodox supporters, and this decision strengthens the Orthodox rabbinate and undermines an opportunity for pluralism. For many progressive Jews, this step back felt like a slap in the face, and it was further exacerbated last week by the advance of a controversial bill that would make the Israeli chief rabbinate the only body authorized to perform conversion in Israel. While reform and conservative conversions in Israel are not yet recognized by the state, this bill would delegitimize even private Orthodox conversions, so that the only recognized conversions by Israel would be done under the auspices of the ultra-Orthodox dominated chief rabbinate. These disappointing developments alienate Reform and conservative Jews from feeling at home in our homeland. President of the Reform movement, Rabbi Rick Jacobs, said, "This ultra-Orthodox coalescing of religious authority is destructive to all streams of Judaism and would lead to a rift that could not easily be repaired." He underscored, though, that the recent developments would not sever the bonds between the Jewish people, and he offered a call to action. He said, "Let us not be silent. Let us not let the wheels of this government roll over the Jewish people. We have a role, we have a responsibility. So how do we live out this responsibility? We can support the organizations in Israel that work toward pluralism. And to name just a few, the Israel Religious Action Center is the public and legal advocacy arm of the Israel Movement for Progressive Judaism. Their work focuses on securing state funding for reform and conservative institutions, protecting the rights of converts, and working toward freedom for civil marriage. We can support reform synagogues in Israel that offer open and progressive approaches to meet the needs of Israelis who are not Orthodox and who want a spiritual life. We can educate ourselves about the Israeli officials who are advocating for pluralism, like Stav Shafir, who gave this sermon here at Temple Emmanuel last month. Ms. Shafir has proposed legislation to allow same-sex couples government recognition for civil unions, and she has prayed with Women of the Wall. And we should and need to continue visiting Israel, and you can go with Temple Emmanuel next December. The fact that we have different populations, different perspectives within our Jewish community gives us strength. We do not need to have one voice, but rather to make space for many voices. Rabbi Harold Schulweis of blessed memory articulated how the great scholars of Judaism had diverse movement affiliations and levels of observance. He wrote, "The Jewish community would not have been better off without a Heschel or a Soloveitchik, without a Kaplan or a Buber, without Leo Beck. Not all wisdom or truth is mine. Not all revelation is limited to my movement, to my denomination. We have to think of Judaism with a whole and steady vision, not as the story of the blind men, each touching one part of the elephant and then claiming his part as the whole. Judaism cannot be reduced to a set of theological doctrines or ritual practices. To reduce it so is to break the wholeness and richness of Judaism into sectarian and denominational parts. Israel's survival, our survival, requires that diaspora Jews feel connected to Israel and remain engaged in Israel. Kol Aravim Zeh Bazeh, all the people of Israel, all Jewish people, are responsible for one another. And responsibility is a contractual relationship. And when we question and open ourselves to each other, we come to know one another and to feel for each other. And this is the relationship we strive to have with Israel. There is space in Israel for all expressions of Judaism, and it's our responsibility to make it so. Shabbat Shalom.
על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המר והמתוק, על ביתנו התינוקת, שמורי לי הטוב, על האש המבוערת, על המים הזכים, על האיש השב הביתה מן המרחקים, כל אלה, על כל אלה, שמונה לי אלי הטוב, על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המר והמתוק, על נתן כל נטוע, אל תשכח את התקווה, השיבני ונשובה אל הארץ הטובה. שמונה לי על זהבי, על